Hello and welcome to Long Live Hooky Street, the podcast where we rewatch and discuss every episode of Britain's most beloved TV comedy, Only Fools and Horses. I'm Jenny and I'm joined from Hong Kong by my co-host and sister Heather. Say hello, dude.
Hello, and we are back with another series wrap special. Today we're going to do an overview of Series 2. You will hopefully remember we did this at the end of Series 1 and we decided to continue with it. So we will be summing up our thoughts on the series as a whole, talking a little bit about the background at the time and the struggles with the BBC, as well as clarifying anything we weren't sure of during the recordings.
Yeah, so let's start with any corrections or clarifications. We don't really have many because I didn't have any feedback from anybody. But I'm hoping that if anyone does have anything that they want us to address, we can do it in any episode. So the only ones I found from listening, unless you made any notes. So I have in Ashes to Ashes, we said that we needed to clarify if the phone appears in any earlier episodes. Remember? You said, is this the first time we see the phone? And I was like, no, the phone was in Series 1.
Oh,
right. I mean, the two-piece receiver that they don't seem to understand how it works, where they keep on putting the earpiece. It does actually not appear until Series 2. I went back and I checked all the phone calls that I could remember from Series 1, and they're always talking on like a gold phone that's like a one-piece receiver, but it's not a two-piece like ear thing. And so, yeah.
Oh, okay. All
so
right.
You were right for that one.
Yes. Ching.
Unfortunately, you were wrong about what you said in Yellow Peril. There's no obvious way to see that Grandad is watching 3 TVs. There's 2. There's no obvious three.
So, oh, well, win some, lose some.
Yeah. And then a question I couldn't answer was we wanted to find out more information about Grandad being deported and whether it would mean he wouldn't be able to go back to Spain. It was so hard to get an answer to this because everything that came up on my computer was about US immigration, and I kept putting, and they were like, no, Can't do this, can't do that. And I tried to look in the 1930s, like if someone was deported from Spain. And it said that it was just a very complicated, difficult question to answer because of the way that there was the war and everything. But no, I mean, I think we were right with what we said, that I don't think it would be easy to get into a country that you'd been deported from without anyone knowing there was an issue. But the more important story issue with that episode is the fact that they all wouldn't have been able to get passports if... What Del said was correct, was that they had to kind of live under the radar. So
yes, true.
Yeah, and the only other thing we said we were going to do, we forgot in Diamonds Are for Heather, was...
Because I forgot.
Because I forgot. I'm so sorry. I'm not perfect.
I'm not perfect. We're doing Faulty Towers quotes on an Only Fools and Horses podcast.
Okay, they're linked because of John Howard David.
True, they are. We have spoken about Faulty Towers quite a few times, actually, on our podcast, I've noticed.
Yeah, and lots of the same people are in it. We were going to say that we were going to see if there was any similarities that we thought between the character of Raquel and Heather, and then Darren and Damien. Obviously, Darren isn't really a character, but I did note that they had the same letter starting their first name. So, yeah, because I'm so inquisitive like that.
I think that Raquel and Heather are not very similar as characters. I think Raquel seems a lot more genuine and less naive than Heather. I think she seems more worldly. Heather just seems a bit of a user, actually. But again, you can only base it on one episode, and she's written to be that way. So, but also Heather is someone that's very confused about what she wants, whereas Raquel is pretty consistent throughout the entirety of Only Fools and Horses that she wants to be with Del.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're also both separated from their husbands, which is one similarity that I noted. But yeah, from the get-go, like, does Raquel mention that she was married before? Yes, she does in dates. Yeah, so in the same way that Heather brings up that she was married before, Heather is very, like you said, very kind of almost reminiscent when she thinks about Vic, whereas
she's melancholy for her lost marriage and for her ex. Well, they're not even ex-husband, ex-wife, are they?
None of them are divorced because Raquel's not divorced either.
Yeah, that's right.
She does say, I was married before and that was a disaster. And she doesn't really talk much about Roy until her ex-husband she mentions that we find out later was Roy Slater. But there's no I was married, and I'm sad about it. She's definitely very moved on.
No, from what we know of Roy Slater, it makes sense that she wouldn't want to be with Roy Slater. But of course, it's one of those situations where you're like, how were they even married? Like, how did anyone fall in love with Roy Slater? It's one of those things, isn't it? How you just wonder how that would have happened. But yeah, I don't know. So we like Raquel better is what we're trying to say, yeah.
I think we're trying to say that, yeah, there isn't really any similar. I mean, there are similarities in the way that they're introduced, a young single woman who was married before,
Yes.
probably meant to be around the same age. But yeah, I don't think there are any similarities. And like you say, Heather appears to be sort of a strong kind of character at first. And she does seem really interested in Del. But yeah, she just does that 180 and she's just like, oh, I never really liked you. So yeah, that's kind of shit.
Yeah, very, very unlikable character. Also, Heather has a baby and I don't think she'd have treated Del any differently, even if Darren hadn't have been there. I think she still would have gone back to her ex-husband the second he clicked his fingers, because she seemed to still be in love with him. So she shouldn't have gone anywhere near Del.
Yeah. But I do wonder, yeah, like if there is a relation between the Darren and the Damien names, but I guess not.
I don't know. I mean, when I said like comparing Darren and Damien, I was comparing the way that Del is with Darren. Like he seems to really want to spend time with him playing. I don't think we see a single instance of Del playing with Damien like that, like playing football or like having that like, here you go, Dame. Well, a little bit maybe the baby talk when he's in the flat and stuff, but for the most part, Damien isn't treated like that with Del. It's not like the same, if you know what I mean. He's more kiddie, like he wants to play with the kids when he's with Darren, whereas with Damien, I don't think we really see that side of Del. Do we?
Yeah, so the one thing is that I think it's implied that Del spends a lot of time playing with Damien. You don't see it visually, I don't think, in the later series, but it's implied by Raquel that he does spend a lot of time playing with Damien. I don't think Del neglected Damien. I just don't think we see as much as like...
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. It's obviously we can only assume sort of their relationship, but yeah, it's not shown. Whereas we get a lot of Del hanging out with Darren and playing the family man throughout all of that part. So yeah.
That's it really for the clarifications and corrections. I was hoping that we would get a little bit more feedback, but we haven't had anything else that anybody has mentioned. So we'll move on. But yeah, like I said before, we can add anything in future episodes if we need to address a particular thing that we need to redo or need to talk about again.
So how about we go over the end of the series and what happened at the BBC?
Oh yeah, let's do that. So things appeared to have improved a lot since the end of Series 1. There had been 2 Christmas specials this year, definitely aired in better spots. We'd gotten a new theme song explaining the meaning of Only Fools and Horses. And one episode, A Touch of Glass, had attracted a record-breaking 10.2 million viewers. All sounds good, right?
It does.
Unfortunately, the average viewing figures were still only 8.85 million, which was not super impressive for its time. And since there were still only 4 channels on TV, and there were approximately 56 million people living in the UK at the time, so for a bit of comparison, shows like The Two Ronnies and Last of the Summer Wine were attracting around 16 million viewers. So BBC higher-ups were looking for those kinds of numbers. We mentioned this before. John Sullivan was very disappointed in the lack of support he felt he was getting from the BBC. He did not feel that they were promoting the show enough. And he'd already moved on a little bit in his head, and he was starting to think of other ideas because he thought it was over. Honestly, over 6 months passed, and Sullivan was already working on other ideas and new scripts by this time. Nothing was picked up, and I'm sure Sullivan was bummed, but perhaps luckily for us, nothing else was picked up. So here is where we and all of the UK got our good fortune, I guess. There's obviously negative parts of this for some people, but overall, I think we can all agree the consequences were good. Come the summer of 1983, July 5th to be exact, Series 2 was re-aired on the BBC, starting at 8:30 p.m, this particular airing. I've seen people say that this re-airing happened due to a strike at the BBC. Which I know is true, but I couldn't find any specifics about what the strike was about. I would love to speak about that, but I couldn't. So one thing I did notice here, which is an inconsistency, it says in the official Inside Story book that I've been reading that it was re-aired at 7:45 after a new lifestyle show called Looking Good, Feeling Fit. But I actually scrolled through all the BBC archives and I found that that's not true. It was aired at 8:30 p.m. It followed the Freddie Starr showcase. And I also noticed one interesting thing is that it re-aired out of order. So starting July 5th, they aired No Greater Love. July 12th.
Weird one to start with.
Yeah, I know. July 12th, they aired Ashes to Ashes. So they got that one in its right position. The 19th, they aired The Losing Streak. The 26th, they aired The Long Legs of the Law. So they flipped those two. No Greater Love and Long Legs, right? And then August 2nd, they aired A Yellow Peril. August 9th, they aired It Never Rains. And August 16th, they aired A Touch of Glass. And there does not appear to have been a re-airing of Diamonds of Heather.
Well, probably for the best.
Yeah, unless it occurred on another day of the week, but I would have had to scroll through weeks of BBC archives to find it, and I'm not going to.
No, fair enough.
So I don't think they re-aired Diamonds of Heather.
I mean, if it were me, I'd have put a losing streak on first because it's the strongest one of the series. But I mean, it's good that they decided to re-air it, definitely, because obviously I'm assuming you're about to tell me that is what garnered the interest for the show, because no one really watched it in its original. Well, 8-something million people did, but that's not enough to keep things on the air in that day and age.
Well, yeah. Well, this is where they have like different standards for different seasons because, it was accepted that fewer people watch TV in the summer. So the average ratings for this re-airing was 7.7 million, which is less than the Christmas airings. But that was considered really good for the summer. But the most important thing was the actual week-by-week increase that they saw. So it started to gain people like being like, oh, I want to come back and watch Only Fools and Horses.
Oh, right, yeah.
And that gave the BBC executives the idea that they shouldn't axe it. So... back to John Howard Davis again, our producer and director of Fawlty Towers. But he was also still the BBC head of comedy at this time. He decided to go ahead and commission a third series based on this re-airing. So I think a lot of people know about the re-airing thing, kind of saving the show. So if it hadn't been for this re-airing and it hadn't been for that strike, that would have been it. We would have just had those 2 series of Only Fools and Horses.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you didn't?
I didn't
Okay,
know
that's
about
interesting.
that. No.
Yeah, so there's actually a quote here from John Sullivan that was in the Only Fools and Horses official inside story. So he said, Sharon and I took the kids to Hastings and we were staying in a caravan when I picked up a paper and glanced at the TV ratings. And there was Only Fools and Horses at number 5. And then it went up to 2 or 3. And I had no real idea why. It was as if the public had finally noticed the show. If that hadn't happened, we would have been dead. There was no way a third series would have been commissioned. By the time I got back home, I was offered 2 more series. Prior to that, for 3 or 4 months, I couldn't get arrested at the BBC. So he was basically saying that no one paid any attention to him.
Yeah, he was a nomad. No one cared. Yeah.
So John Howard Davis had originally offered Sullivan a third series, but he actually improved the offer to include a 4th. He got offered 3 and 4 at once. So Sullivan said he, David Jason, and Ray Butt were chatting about it, and they thought, about bloody time. They've realized this thing they've got here is quite strong, and they felt they'd proved a point.
Yeah.
So overall, this was a particularly good time for John Sullivan. Like, he felt he had broken through some kind of barrier at the BBC. The shackles were off. He began to see success with other projects too, such as Just Good Friends, which was another show that he got at this time. He said, the fear I had begun to disappear along with my inhibitions I had about my writing. So this is perhaps why a few people feel Only Fools and Horses really got going after Series 3.
Don't get going, does it?
Don't get going, does it?
I mean, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. That it's now that I know that, it sounds to me like basically John Sullivan just felt like he had a lot more freedom to write what he wanted to, and he didn't feel as restricted. So it makes sense, that Series 3, I think Series 3 overall, I mean, we'll talk about it when we do Series 3, but I think it is definitely the strongest series out of the first 3. And that does make a lot of sense now. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I think A Losing Streak is a fantastic episode in Series 2. And I guess, thank goodness that some of the episodes in Series 2 and Series 1 were good, because otherwise they wouldn't have picked up the viewing figures. It's not like they're not good episodes and they're not strong series. But it's from a writing standpoint, you can really tell that John Sullivan was letting loose a bit more on Series 3, or maybe just even having a bit more fun in Series 3. I think that's kind of how I describe it. Like the interactions, the stories, everything just a bit more fun, a bit lighter. Yeah, perhaps it does feel a little bit lighter. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because you always think, oh yeah, but there's this episode in Series 1 and 2. But yeah, I mean, his confidence improved, and his ability to write the pacing got a little bit better, because we talked about pacing issues in Series 1 and 2. Half an hour was obviously not his strong amount of time allotted for a script. He did much better when he had either longer to develop a story, or sometimes he felt his ideas were rushed. He just got more into that slot by Series 3. I was going to say, and he knew it's. I think he also knew how to write the characters better as well. By the time he got to series 3, he'd already been writing these characters for a couple of years, and he knew them better and therefore knew sort of where he could take them that would be appropriate and things they could say and things they could do. And again, work on the relationships between the characters a bit more, which is, noticeable, I think.
Yeah.
But series 2 was definitely stronger than series 1, in my opinion.
And also, like, when they did Diamonds Are for Heather, even though that one didn't get re-aired, that doesn't matter. But they actually, like we discussed last week, had an actual budget allotted for that montage.
Yeah.
The first time they were actually able to go out and just let loose and film around London. Like, they didn't even get to film in Spain when they went to Benidorm. So, yeah. And maybe John Sullivan also was told at the beginning of this that, you'll actually be able to get a bit of budget for your location shoots. So, location filming started for Series 3 on Friday, the 2nd of September, 1983. So, one day before Fran turned 1. Our sister. Yeah, so we still weren't born, But would Mom have been pregnant with me by now? Yeah, almost. Well, yeah, right?
Yeah, she must have been, right?
So I was in the making at this point. So let's take
Just like Only Wasn't Horses.
Yeah. Mom got a second series. No, okay. Let's take a look at a few of the other things that were going on at the UK at the time that the location filming started for Series 3. So 1983 overall was a politically significant year, with the Conservative Party led by Margaret Thatcher winning the election in June by a landslide. Do you remember that? Let us know below. A few TV specific ones here. In June of 1983, the very first episode of Blackadder was on TV on the BBC, starring Rowan Atkinson. So that's another BBC classic. In January 1983, Children's ITV was launched.
Here we are, the start of Children's ITV, and I'll be piloting your starship through all the stars and all the programmes. Look out, we're off!
There's new branding for
that I know.
Yeah, the late afternoon programming block on the ITV network. So yes, we grew up watching Children's ITV. So this is a particularly significant. That's when it started. In UK history, there was another major event involving the IRA. Here, 38 IRA prisoners from the Maze prison took part in the biggest escape in British history. 3 guards died during the escape. 19 escapees were later apprehended. October 22nd, over 1 million people demonstrated against nuclear weapons at a campaign for nuclear disarmament march in London. And this was called the Human Chain Protest, if you've heard of that, where the protesters formed a 14-mile human chain. And a couple of new things that the UK people got in 1983. March 1983 saw the first compact discs go on sale.
Wow.
CDs.
CDs. Sorry, that's a quote from Sooty, if anyone cares.
Well, that's appropriate because of Children's ITV.
Yeah, we're just talking about ITV. So Sooty and Co. That's a quote from Sooty.
And finally, 1983, April 21st, brought us the £1 coin. Introduced in the UK and Wales. So this replaced those little £1 banknotes that we saw in Christmas crackers.
Okay,
so,
right.
Yeah.
There you go.
So that makes sense for now. Like, I mean, neither of us were born, and it was just a year before I was born, and they got rid of the banknote.
A lot of stuff happened though that year, like significant stuff. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think
particularly the Margaret Thatcher getting in.
Yeah,
I mean that's a pretty huge thing for the UK. People still say we're paying for it today.
Right, yes.
And what is it Albert says in the later episode?
Maggie Thatcher's ruined this business.
At last someone's got something good to say about her.
Yeah, there's actually lots of references we'll probably be able to call out to Margaret Thatcher, but yeah, so it's significant. And honestly, yeah, this is obviously a very small snapshot of what happened in 1983. There's thousands of news stories about TV, as well as there are about the general news and all over the world. I just pull a little snapshot, so I'm not leaving things out on purpose. If there's anything really cool you wanted me to include, let me know. Anything surprising?
Yeah, it's hard to talk about a time that you weren't born and sort of report on everything that happened. So yeah, if there's anyone listening who was born or is around or older in 1983, please feel free to tell us your own experiences of that time, because we'd very much like to hear them.
Yeah, but obviously throughout the 90s, I was just a kid, so how much I remember about the news is going to vary. But yeah, like certain significant news stories, and you'll remember where you were when you heard that news. So I thought it was quite interesting. So let's move on to talking about our overview of our rankings for Series 2.
Okay, cool. So we're going to do a quick summary of our episode order for Series 2 from our rankings and see how they compare. So take it away, dude.
Okay, so my Series 2 order was Number 1, Ashes to Ashes. Number 2, A Losing Streak. Number 3, Long Legs of the Law. Number 4, A Touch of Glass. Number 5, The Yellow Peril. Number 6, No Greater Love. Number 7, Diamonds Are for Heather. And number 8, It Never Rains.
Okay, so my order was A Losing Streak as the top one, Ashes to Ashes, A Touch of Glass, The Long Legs of the Law, No Greater Love, The Yellow Peril, It Never Rains, and Diamonds Are for Heather. So I've actually just noticed that all of ours are literally flipped.
Yeah, they're just
every
flipped,
single one. So we've got it the other way around for A Losing Streak and Ashes to Ashes, the other way around for A Touch of Glass and The Long Legs of the Law, the other way around for No Greater Love and Yellow Peril, and the other way around for It Never Rains and Diamonds Are for Heather.
Yeah, I just noticed
so I guess
that too.
similar.
Yeah, they're very close. I mean, I think the most significant difference is the fact that your Losing Streak was almost in your top 10.
Yes.
My highest ranking was 24. That was Ashes to Ashes. So that's my favorite episode. And yeah, I love A Losing Streak. But yeah, you've got A Losing Streak way up there.
But I have 4 that are above 50.
Yeah, that's really good.
And you've got 3. And
no, I've got
3.
5 above 50.
Oh, sorry. When I say above 50, I meant lower than 50. Sorry, we got confused there. Wires crossed. So when I say above 50, I mean you rank them like over 50, as in like 51, 52, 53. So yeah. So No Greater Love, Diamonds Are for Heather, and It Never Rains. And for me, The Yellow Peril are all quite low. They're all 50 something or even 60 for It Never Rains and Diamonds Are for Heather. We both put them in the bottom few episodes.
It Never Rains for me is 61, so it's in like my bottom 4. Yeah. But...
yeah, Diamonds Are for Heather is in my bottom as well.
Yeah. So I should imagine that when we get to the later series, we're not going to have as many low rankings. But again, a lot of these episodes I do love. They're just low because the other series are stronger.
Well, you got to put something in that slot, haven't you? But I do think that Diamonds Are for Heather is quite a weak episode overall.
Yeah,
I think that deserves to be lower. It doesn't
feel like the classic Only Fools and Horses vibes that people love.
No, definitely not. And It Never Rains as well. I think also, can be classed, to be fair, as a weaker episode. I think it deserves to be sort of in that slot more so than maybe some of the other ones deserve it.
Perhaps, yeah. But yeah, let us know your rankings below. If you've got just a series order, that's still fine. You don't have to have all of them ranked.
So regarding our award segment that we've been doing throughout series 2, we're now going to award a few end of series awards. So the grand award that they get to the end. So let's look first at our plonker of the week that we did.
I don't believe it. What a plonker. What a plonker.
So starting with the first episode, we have Rodney for Long Legs of the Law, then Grandad for Ashes to Ashes, Boise for A Losing Streak, then we have Rodney again for No Greater Love, then we have Dell for The Yellow Peril, Grandad for It Never Rains, Lord Ridgemere, I'm pretty sure he's not going to get it, for A Touch of Glass, and Diamonds Are for Heather. Heather is the plonker.
Okay.
So I guess who got it the most, it's Rodney and Grandad, right?
Yeah, it's tied. So we have to decide who's the plonker of the series. I'm going to go ahead and nominate Grandad as plonker of the series.
Yeah, let me just have a look at all the episodes again, just so I can think about this. But
let me just put in that little extra note that we did consider Grandad for plonker in in A Touch of Glass as well, because he just went and started working on whichever chandelier he wanted.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
that's true. Okay, I'm happy to give it to Grandad.
Yeah, because he obviously he's only in 3 series. Dell was plonker of the series.
He used to win it once.
Yeah, but if you think about this series, it's got a lot of good Grandad episodes in it, and he's a massive plonker, and It Never Rains, so he should be plonker of this series.
Yes, that's a good idea. So, Grandad, you are the plonker of series 2. Well done.
Going back to the hotel and have a fiesta.
Okay, how about best line? Do you want to do this one, dude?
Yeah, I don't know. Do we have to read all of them out? I don't know if we need to.
No, I don't think we do. We can just say which one we want to give the best line to.
Maybe, did you actually pre-consider which one you want to nominate out of these? Because I didn't. I just wrote them all out.
I think I have already got mine chosen, yes. Okay, dude, what did you choose?
Okay, I was going to say that, like, the Grandad has so many of the best lines this series by the looks of our summary. Like, he really stood out. I was going to say that for the best line of the series, it should be either the line from A Losing Streak I knew you was
Yes.
cheating, Boise, because that wasn't the hand I dealt you. Or I'd have to think twice. Granddad's line.
Yeah, those are the two that I also chose, but I think I have to give it to A Losing Streak because
that's what I
that
think,
moment
yeah.
is iconic and that line is iconic. So we're
I
giving
agree,
the best
yeah.
line of Series 2 to...
Where'd you get those 4 bloody aces from?
Same place you got them kings. I knew you was cheating, Boise,
Oh, yeah. How?
because that wasn't the hand that I dealt you.
Okay, and then lastly, we're going to look at the best moment of the series. Okay, so we need to choose a best moment. Let's have a look here.
Again,
we're not going to go over all of the contenders because you'll have to listen to our podcast if you want to know what they are. But we are going to pick one that we think is the best overall moment of Series 2. So I think there's only one we can really choose for this, isn't there?
I was going to say, I mean, I don't want to be like super obvious, but I think it kind of has to go to the chandelier drop.
Yeah, it's one of the most iconic moments of British comedy history. So I don't think we can't give it to that. Although personally, I also think the moment that Del reveals his cards in A Losing Streak is an amazing moment as well. But yeah, I think obviously we have to give it to the chandelier. But my secret contender is Del revealing that he's got a pair of aces and another pair of aces.
Yeah, it's true.
That's 4 aces.
But it's nice to look back now and remember that Series 2 has 2 moments that are very often featured in summaries, which is the chandelier drop and the reveal of the yellow walls at the Chinese takeaway.
Yeah, true.
And can you remember what the best moment of Series 1 was?
Not at all.
Yeah, so I...
No, I do remember. It's from Cash and Curry. It's Del falling down the stairs in Cash and Curry.
So we can compare those two, and we can also compare what we chose as the best line of Series 1 was actually a serious line. It was Grandad's line.
Yes, it was the war line.
So you can see how different it already is. Like, we've already got a lot more contenders for the big comedic moment or best moment, and we've got more lines that are punchy and funny to choose from in Series 2.
Yes.
So I do think you can see the evolution already of the writing by what contenders we have here.
So people don't get mad at us in the comments. We are giving it to the chandelier.
Yeah.
The best moment of Series 2.
Yeah. I mean, it is a great moment. Let's not forget.
We can't give it to anything else, really. So, yeah.
So we're getting close to the end here, but one thing we're going to do before we move on to the quiz is we're going to do our long-term continuity checks. I'm just going to run through this real quick because we're still quite early on in the evolution of the show. It'll get more interesting as we get further on, but I've written a quick summary of any references to age or dates that are mentioned so far in this series and Series 1 that might be something that we need to refer back to as we get further. So I don't think there were any references to age or time in Long Lives of the Law. In Ashes to Ashes, we mostly get Trigger's family history, but by the time we get to A Losing Streak, we do get something to work with. I'll mention that in Ashes to Ashes they talk about the affair, but they don't, like the Alice and Grandad affair, but they don't.
Yes.
But they don't mention any dates or any timeline.
No.
So in A Losing Streak, Del says that their dad left on his 16th birthday, and we know Joan was supposed to have died before Reg left. But so if we're still assuming that Del was born in 1945, which we established in Series 1, that would mean that Del turned 16 in 1961. So then we see in 1964 Joan supposedly died, which would have meant that Del would have then been 19, not 16. So,
Right.
But then if we go off the date of 1964, Del being 19, Rodney would have been 6, which actually fits in better with the future stories where Rodney recalls memories of his mom. Because
Yeah, that's true.
we were trying to assume that Rodney wasn't a tiny baby when his mom died because he talks about remembering seeing things, and you don't normally remember things if you're a little baby.
I was going to say, I think the line that comes to my mind when you're saying that is when I think it's in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yes, I remember that well. I was a little 5-year-old stood in a damp graveyard wondering what the hole in the ground was for.
So at the moment, for the future stories, we're trying to sort of find reference to Rodney being a little bit older when his mom died. So that fits in. Let's say go off the 1964 date and the Del being born in 1945, meaning his mom was 19. So he was 19 when his mom died. So the whole Reg leaving on the 16th birthday is the one that throws it off a little bit. But again, like I said, John Sullivan wasn't writing any of this down, so it totally makes sense. The other one that we mentioned at the time is that in No Greater Love, Rodney says he's 23 and a half, which would mean that only half a year has passed, if that, from the whole of series 1 and 2. Dell's age is not mentioned at all in series 2. So finally, in Diamonds of a Heather, Dell says his dad left 18 years ago. So he mentions in Yellow Peril his mom died 17 years ago. So from that, we can garner that Diamonds of a Heather is actually supposed to be set a year after, because those two things were supposed to happen at the same time. So Diamonds of a Heather is supposed to be a little bit further in time. But yeah, that's all I have for series 2. We'll carry it on. Nothing majorly wrong yet. Just a couple of little age calculations are a little off. So
okay,
that's all.
All right. Well, on that note, I have created the series 2 quiz for Jenny. So she doesn't know the questions I'm about to fire at her, so she hasn't had time to prepare her answers. Obviously, at home, you can also do this quiz if you think you've got the knowledge on series 2 of Only Fools and Horses. Some of these questions are quite difficult, so let's just see how Jenny gets on. So I've chosen to do one question for each episode.
Oh, all right.
Okay, so let's start with episode 1, Long Lives of the Law. What is the name of Sid's calf in the establishing shot in this episode?
Oh, no. I have no idea.
Okay. All right. So the answer of this, you want to guess?
Can you give us a clue?
Okay. It's 3 words. One of them is cafe.
Okay.
The first two words begin with O. Both of them begin with O, and then the last word is cafe.
The Old Oak Cafe.
Yes,
yeah.
It is. Very good.
I remember saying that, I think, in the episode, the Old Oak Cafe.
There you go.
Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah, you see, some of these you might remember because you do all the trivia and all the research.
Yeah,
so.
okay.
Okay, good. All right, now, if you don't get this right, you're a terrible fan because you love this episode. So let's see how much you love Ashes to Ashes. How many people are there in the room at the bowling club when Del and Rodney are trying to scatter the ashes?
First of all, I would like to say that is not a question that a fan would know. I have no idea.
A super fan would.
All right, well, a super fan would have said, now look, there's nothing in the rule about clues on the last question when I said...
Do you want to guess?
7.
Oh, you were so close. The answer is 8. Okay. All right. No worries, dude. You're doing great. You got 1 right so far. Okay. Losing streak. Okay. This one's a quote related one. So hopefully you've got more of a chance with this one.
All right.
Where does Del tell Julie to put the change after he orders drinks for everyone in a losing streak?
Put the change in the, I don't know, charity jar?
It is a charity jar, but what does he refer to it as?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Oh, it's okay. So I should also just point out to all of our listeners right now that it is actually 5 to 7 in the morning where Jenny is. So she might not be that alert.
I am drinking coffee there.
She's drinking coffee. So the correct answer is...
And why don't you have one yourself, and put the change in the Third World Relief bottle, will you?
Oh, okay. Third World Relief. Oh, yeah. Right. I remember that now. Put the change in the Third World Relief bottle.
Third World Relief bottle, will you? Yeah. So... No Greater Love. How many friends does Marcus enter the Nag's Head with in No Greater Love?
Oh, God. I don't know. 3? 2?
Trick question. None. He walks in alone and his friends are already waiting at the bar.
That is a trick question. Yeah, I remember there being other people with him.
Yeah. So it's only when he's at the bar there is. He actually walks in alone and speaks to Del and Rodney alone and then goes over to the bar.
How many have I got right so far? None?
1.
I hope everyone at home's getting
I'm sure the people listening are getting them all right.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one, the Yellow Peril. What are the 3 responses Del gives to Rodney in the Yellow Peril when he asks what Del has been up to while Grandad and Rodney have been painting the Chinese takeaway? I'll give you an example. Now and then.
Yeah. This and that.
Mm-hmm. That's 1.
Here and there.
Here and something.
There and back.
Not here and there.
There and back.
Here and back. Last one.
This and that. Or did I already say that?
You already said that. So you've got here and back, this and that. There's 1 more.
I don't know.
Okay, no worries. The last one is bits and pieces.
Oh, I wouldn't have got that.
Oh, bits and pieces.
Where you been?
There and back.
So what you been doing?
This and that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have either, to be honest. When I was coming up with these, I was like, oh God, I don't even know these.
I've got that quiz book for every episode. They give you 10 questions for every episode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's where I got a lot of my questions.
You've got it easy
from.
to create your quizzes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of questions myself. Okay, all right. Well, at least my questions are hard, it would seem.
They're very hard. You
all
should
right.
write an impossible book about only possibilities.
We just try and think of something that you might find difficult. You don't want to make it too easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is for It Never Rains. What is the name of the hotel the Trotters stay at in Benidorm?
Oh, God. I actually thought of this the other day when I was watching the episode because it says it on the bar.
There's a shot of the outside of the hotel where it says it.
I don't know. Yeah, it's like a long word.
It is Hotel Las Palmas.
Ah.
So it's 3 short words.
Maybe the one I looked at said something different then.
Yeah, there's a shot of it as they're coming off the coach outside the hotel. Hotel Las Palmas. I think I'm saying that correctly. Palmas, right?
Yeah.
Palmas?
It's probably
Palmas.
Spanish, so yeah. But
Yeah. Okay, this one you might have a chance. So this is for A Touch of Glass. Again, it's a quote-related one. I know you tend to do better with those.
all right.
How does Del say you can tell a chandelier is made from French crystal?
From the cut of the from the cut of the crystal, or the cut of the teardrops or something.
You're so close.
The cut of the droplets.
It's not teardrops.
The cut of the
droplets. Yeah, that's correct. So
Okay.
the actual quote is,
Thought it was. You can always tell by the old cut of the droplets.
diamonds are for Heather.
Oh,
Okay,
God.
this one, we'll see. This one is medium difficulty. Okay, in the montage in Diamonds Are for Heather, they visit a restaurant, a zoo, London Bridge, and a planetarium. But in which order are these shown in the montage?
Oh, well, it starts with the little boat.
That's not mentioned. I didn't mention that one. There's the other 4 I mentioned.
Then they go to the bridge, or the zoo. The zoo first, then the bridge, then the planetarium, and then the restaurant.
So close. It's the zoo, the planetarium, London Bridge, and then the restaurant.
That's what I said.
You did not. You said zoo, London Bridge, planetarium, and restaurant.
Oh, man. So I got
Dude.
0.
No, you didn't get 0. You got 2
Oh.
that you got straight off the bat. You got most of one of them, which was the Where Have They Been in a Yellow Peril.
I swear
Bits and pieces,
to
the only
God,
bit.
like, that it's because I'm tired.
Yeah, that is that. To be fair, I agree. It probably is that because you're very sharp usually on trivia.
Yeah.
So I think you're just a bit knackered.
Yeah,
That's okay.
I tried to go to bed last night at like 9, and then these guys all came down from the roof and just walked into the apartment, talked to the top of their lungs, and woke me up. Yeah.
Oh no, dude.
And then I got up
I'm
at
sorry.
5
Well,
to
hopefully
record
you're paying
this
them back
podcast.
right now.
Yeah.
You'll be paying them back right now, talking nice and loud while they're all trying to stay in bed.
I'm in the closet, so nobody can hear me.
That is what you think, Trotter.
Arthur? You mean you can hear me?
That's right. So anyway, drink up, we're leaving.
Okay, that's it for Series 2. Join us next week when we'll be starting Series 3 with Episode 1, Homesick. And for one last time... Au revoir, listeners.
If you like what you hear and want to contact us, you can email us at longlivehookeystreetpodcast@gmail.com. All one word, no spaces. Bonjour.